Hi, my name is Anna Keys, and I am a senior in communication and new media with a concentration in strategic communication and a minor in gender and women's studies. For my capstone project, I chose to do a podcast, and my podcast is titled, Hey, That's Tight, Cool Jobs, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Here's a quick sample for you. Hello, and a very big welcome to the first episode of Hey, That's Tight, a podcast where we talk to cool people with cool jobs and figure out how they're making their money and why they love it. I'm your host, Anna Keys. I decided to make this podcast as a student who was tired of only getting sterile job descriptions. I wanted to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly from the professionals themselves. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Gabriella Keys. Bree is a hairstylist and makeup artist, currently in her 4th year of owning her own salon. She talks about her educational journey, the rewarding moments that come from helping others to look and feel their best, and even her beauty school horror stories. Help me to welcome her to the show. So why did I choose to do a podcast for my capstone project? This project was definitely a large step outside of my comfort zone. I knew during the capstone preparation class that I wanted to choose a project that would challenge me with both the tools and softwares that I had used and within my own personal fears and anxieties. So setting up the interviews and actually conducting them was the most uncomfortable part of the entire podcast for me. But I felt that once I got started with recording and getting into the flow of conversation, it was much less stressful. Next, I wanted to focus on a project that I felt like I hadn't experimented with as much during my time at Shepherd. I took the news practicum course during my junior year where I learned to use the software and equipment that I used here, but it was a skill that I still believed that I could develop further. And then lastly, as someone who's graduating college with a bit of uncertainty as to what I want to do next, I wanted to talk to people who were already established in their careers and receive their honest input on what they like and don't like about them. I conducted 3 interviews, which each came in at around 45 minutes long, and each episode features a new guest. Episode 1 features my sister-in-law, Gabriella Keys, a hair and makeup artist and owner of Unoya Beauty Bar. Episode 2 features Will Noddick, who was actually the principal of my high school, St. John's Catholic Prep, during my senior year. Now he is in his 2nd year as head of school. Episode 3 also features a guest from my alma mater, Stu Wilson, who worked as a teacher and basketball coach during my time, and has now taken over the role of athletic director. I was really kind of unsure where I wanted to start when I began working on the graphic for my project. I knew that I wanted something more artistic rather than using realism or photography, so I took to Canva AI and I rotated prompts until I received an image that I liked. I inverted the colors on this image and then I added the speech bubble to hold the title and make the entire piece more cohesive. Finally, I used the Canva QR code maker to make a QR code which links to my podcast Spotify page. Like I mentioned earlier, I had already used Adobe Audition during my news practicum class, but I still felt that I could do more to develop that skill. I spent quite some time familiarizing myself with the interface all over again before I was ready to use it to edit my podcast. So I started with the raw audio file that I had recorded during the interview and edited for sound quality, volume control, and unwanted noise interference. And I chose to leave in the conversational ums and likes, but I edited out all of the ones that were used as time filler while thoughts were collected. And then after I was happy with the sound of the podcast itself, I recorded and added in an intro and an outro. And then finally, I used a free use music track to play during the intro and the outro. I didn't have to use too many tools or different interfaces because many of the ones that I did use were able to complete many different tasks. So the only cost that I had to extend during this project was for 2 wireless mini lavalier microphones, which I ordered on Amazon for around $30. I had access to Adobe products through my internship and got permission to use Audition for all of my sound editing and Acrobat to create PDFs of my podcast transcriptions. I used an interface called Parrot AI to make the transcriptions themselves. The AI wasn't perfect, but it was able to give me a rough transcript, which I then had to go in and edit for mistakes. I use Spotify for podcasters, which was previously known as Anchor, to be able to upload my podcast seamlessly to Spotify. And finally, I use Canva for all of my graphics. Overall, I'm extremely happy with what I created. There are millions of different podcasts on the internet, and I can say for sure that mine is not the best of them all, but I'm satisfied with what I ended up with, and I can truly say that I enjoyed every step. I felt so much more comfortable than I imagined with the one-on-one interviews I was so worried about before the start of the project. I was creating something on audition that I got to decide the direction of rather than having to stick to the parameters of an assignment. Even though I'd love to say that I discovered all of the answers and found the career for me, that is not the truth. One thing that I did learn from each person when it pertains to their career is that true joy in a career comes when you feel you're helping people in your own way and when you feel that what you do truly matters. Even if none of the careers included in this podcast speak to you, each episode is packed full with advice, anecdotes, and reassurance. I can say without a doubt that everyone who listens will take something from it, and that truly makes me proud. If you want to give my podcast a listen, you can access it at the QR code here or at the URL directly below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I hope you enjoy what you hear.